However, despite the lack of verified information about the incident, some are already pointing the finger. Here's what UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said during a meeting with his German counterpart, Sigmar Gabriel.
If this were proved to have been committed by the Assad regime, then it would be another reason to think they're an absolutely heinous outfit. It is a war crime, as Sigmar has just said.
The White House was even more categorical in its accusations, blaming not only the Syrian leader but also the former US president for what happened, saying that it was the weakness of the Obama administration in finding a resolution that led to such an incident.
Watching the news this morning or reading the news, they may be led to believe that the perpetrator behind this attack is already known, with some major media outlets pointing the finger at Russian or Syrian government forces. But quite where they got this information is unclear. While initial reports of this attack and this video footage you're seeing right now is courtesy of news agencies aligned with militia in Idlib province, details of the attack was then released in a statement from the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. And what's interesting is what in that statement there wasn't any mention of who might have committed the attack whatsoever. And yet, here's how the mainstream media covered it.
The group is saying either Syrian government or Russian planes carried out the bombing in Idlib.
And we have seen a pattern of Assad and his allies using indiscriminate attacks against civilian targets.
While Reuters, which at first ran with a similar narrative, later had a change of heart. He has deleted the Russian jets from its headline there. Perhaps it's also worth mentioning at this point that using the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights at all might be something that people, especially the media, should be wary of. It's a well-known fact that it's run by one man who's based in the UK. Now that's quite a long way away from Syria. Even the German Foreign Ministry has advised caution on trusting this particular source.
The Syrian Observatory is not located on the ground, but is based in London. They have access to a good network in Syria, but not everything which is reported there appears to be as they say. I mean, the observatory should take into consideration that there are parties with certain interests which report some things in the way they want it to be reported.
Well, the Russian Ministry of Defense has already denied that its planes were flying in the area at the time of the attack. And just last month, how could we forget, UN investigators issued a report stating that there was no evidence to link Russia to any specific crime committed in Syria. This report focused on war crimes committed in the embattled city of Aleppo throughout 2016 by all parties. In fact, a quote from the UN report said, "There is no information to support the claim that the Russian military ever used any chemical weapons in Syria." Well, despite this, the blame game is likely to continue, given that Russia's been blamed on numerous occasions for attacks in Syria without any evidence being presented. It's become the go-to rhetoric.
Charles Shoebridge, a former UK Army and counter-terrorism intelligence officer, says that the timing of the attack prompts questions.
If you look at the broader geopolitical context of this, regardless of what evidence on the ground emerges, and much evidence, of course, will emerge and be posted on social media and so on, much of which, of course, is capable of manipulation, you have to ask the basic question, what would be the motivation of Assad, particularly at this moment in time when he is making great victories, sweeping across Syria in the fight against the rebels? What would be the motivation at this particular time to attract the condemnation of the world community by carrying out this kind of attack, which actually also, I would say from a military perspective, is of very little military advantage? And so really we have to ask this question, what would be the motivation? And the people who benefit, of course, from this kind of attack are the rebels themselves, because they gain a major political advantage at a time when they are struggling both strategically and geopolitically.
Investigators